The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Book Club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana. It is 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 23rd of July. I hope you are having a wonderful morning so far, nice and sunny out there. And we are going to head straight over to a nasheed, Mountains of Mecca by Zayn Bikar. Enjoy.
Oh, mountains of Mecca, what did you see when a mother cried out where the sun is smiling? And they were depending solely on their Lord. When out of the earth a blessing appeared. Of the day that Abraham passed your way, and he was instructed by God to build a house of peace where people will pray, and they will come on every lane, camel and out of every ravine, for the purpose of praising Allah, to glorify Allah. Mountains of Mecca, what can you tell of the day that stones from the sky fell, destroying an army determined to break the house of Allah that Abraham built? Oh, mountains of Mecca, how was the dawn on the day that my prophet Muhammad was born? How did it feel knowing he was to be the last and most beloved of all, Rasul of Allah, Nabi of Allah? Oh, mountains of Mecca, you were there when the Prophet Muhammad climbed down in despair. Engraved in his heart were the words of his Lord to all of mankind. This was his call. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Oh, people, praise only Allah, glorify Allah. Mountains of Mecca, how did you mourn on the day that the beloved returned to his Lord? And up till the last breath escaped from his lips, he prayed that his ummah would find success. Oh, mountains of Mecca, how will it feel when the earth shall quake and tremble with fear, and we shall be gathered together to stand in the court of Allah with our deeds at hand? Oh, how we pray that on that day we'll be with those to whom Allah will say, peace be with you, I am pleased with you. Oh, mountains of Mecca, bear witness that to the oneness of Allah do I testify. For all that is given me, I cannot deny. My purpose in life should be only to cry, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Book Club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. It's just 4 minutes past 10 on Tuesday the 23rd of July. My name is Imrana. I hope you are having a wonderful morning so far. It's a really, really special show today because I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, which is Peter Sanders, and we're going to be talking about his new photographic book, Meetings with Mountains. So I'm just going to start off by giving an introduction on Peter Sanders and the book itself. So Peter Sanders is a preeminent photographer of the Muslim world. He's been photographing for many, many years. I think his career probably spans at least 40 years or so, and he was actually very early on in his career photographing rock and roll musicians like Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, and then it was at part of his journey of accepting Islam. He then made an active choice to photograph and capture the Muslim world in the terms of the people and places. And I had the pleasure a couple of years ago in 2017 of bringing his body of work, The Art of Integration, to Luton. So we had an exhibition of the work at Stockwood Discovery Centre, and it was an absolute pleasure actually working with Peter Sanders. It was an honour actually. I first met him at his Art of Integration exhibition in London, which was actually all the way back in 2015, and I think just meeting him, and he said that he'd really like to take this exhibition around the UK, whereas it'd been toured around the world actually, but in this country it'd only ever been exhibited mostly in London. So it was, I had a lot of support from Luton Culture, from Luton Arts, lots of organisations in our town to bring that exhibition, and it was definitely one of the most I do consider it a blessing actually to be able to have worked on that project. And I guess for me the driving force behind that was the beauty that Peter Sanders was able to capture in these images. And also there's a previous work which is called In the Shade of the Tree, and that was looking specifically at it was like a photographic record of, again, the Islamic world in terms of people and the different places, and then coming back to The Art of Integration, that was looking at the representation of British Muslims in the UK and all the contributions and all amazing things that we've done. So when I heard that Peter Sanders has a new book out, which obviously it's a body of work that he has been working on for a very long time, and called Meetings with Mountains, and it's basically based on the encounters of saints and sages of the Islamic world. And I think it has to be one of the, if I had to use a word, I think epic would probably still be an understatement. To be able to travel the world and be able to capture all these amazing people, of Allah, and be able to share that with us, I think is really, really beautiful. And I think it's so important that we're able to, have access to this. And alongside that, we had, as part of the Imrana Book Club, so some of you know that I also run that. We had a session where we discussed the book Signs on the Horizons by Michael Sugic, and perhaps once we have Peter Sanders on the line, we can talk a little bit about how they both work to be able to produce these amazing pieces of art basically. So I am going to basically ask Peter Sanders, I think he'll be on it. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Imrana. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. So yeah, I was just introducing a little bit about yourself and about the work that you do. So would you like to maybe, I think just for our listeners, a bit about your journey as a photographer firstly, and then we can speak a little bit about the book that you Meetings with Mountains as well.
Well, I've been doing photography since the mid-60s. And it's kind of followed my own journey, really. So it started off in the kind of mid-60s, and most people know about that period, and the Beatles and the hippies and all that. So kind of that was my kind of how I cut my teeth in photography during that period. And And then kind of certain things happened to me spiritually that began to wake me up to something greater than myself. And so at the end of the 60s, at the beginning of the 70s, I went to India on a kind of quest, really, on a kind of spiritual search. And so I kind of documented all of that. And then and I looked at many different religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism. I read a little bit about Islam, and then, eventually came to Islam, and it was a kind of leap of faith. You have to recognize it's a very different situation than it is now. There was not that much known about Islam at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So then from that point, I just started traveling around the Muslim world, and which I have done continually since that period, and witnessed a lot of changes, really kind of witnessed the end of traditional Islam as we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And, undertaken various projects really to kind of be like a kind of bridge to help people see the side of that world that I've been very fortunate enough to see, which I think a lot of people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of really peaked really with this project, which has been an ongoing project for 50 years, and which is really to photograph the saints and sages. I mean, you can go to any gathering around the world and I can ask the audience who's heard of extremists within Islam, and everybody's going to stick their hand up. But if you ask them, has anyone heard of the opposite? No one will. Maybe someone's heard about Rumi. I think that's probably about the extent of it. Yet it is very much part of the picture, as it is part of any religious community. But for somehow it's not known within our community, or by very few people, and let alone by the wider audience. So it was a project that was very dear to my heart. The problem is that it is a contradiction, as I often say, is that it's a book about a whole group of people who do not want to be photographed and who do not want to be known in the world, because they prefer to be more like recluses almost. I mean, they're not worldly people by their nature. But the point is that when you see them and when you sit with them, there is incredible benefit, and really I wanted to try and present that in a way that's never been done before.
No, I mean, that's an actual, beautiful, I guess, intention. And like you say, it almost feels like it just happened organically, as you said, through your journey. And do you feel that time that you spent with, these people, were they, I guess, quite generous with their time, I'm assuming, and the fact that then they're willing to actually be captured, by yourself on a camera? I mean,
many of them didn't, and it took a lot of persuasion. I mean, it's not that they think photography is forbidden. They don't want anything that makes them appear as if they are something. I mean, it's about the ego, and we live in a very egocentric society now. The whole self-regeneration and everything. But these people, it's from pure humility, really, and those ones that did, who had never been photographed before, they didn't want to say no to me. But, they didn't want that experience, and many of them passed away after the, sometimes weeks after I took their pictures, and I got a little bit nervous at some point because I was thinking, oh my goodness, if the word gets out, no one will ever let me take their pictures. And then a friend of mine said, no, that's why they let you take the picture. They were already leaving the world, so it was not an issue anymore.
No, subhanAllah. And you mentioned that obviously this work in itself is almost like a 50-year project. So what is partly, I guess, the reason? Obviously, some of it obviously is because you were literally traveling, but also is there in itself a journey about being able to bring all that work into fruition as a book? I mean, how was that journey been for you?
Oh, it's called Meetings of Mountains, and I really, especially the last couple of years, I felt like I was climbing the summit of Everest. It was so intense, and the book went through so many changes. It's a bit like, if you started to polish a mirror or a diamond or something, the more you polish it, the more you see flaws in it, and it just I became like a man obsessed with it, to make it as good and as perfect as humanly possible. I mean, I'm sure that I'll look at it in 10 years' time and think, oh, I wish I didn't do that. But at the moment, I'm really happy with it. It's really beautifully printed. You know, I mean, and it's not, you know, it's not just me. It involves a lot of people, you know,
of course.
from designing it and the photographic professionals that I worked with, and from raising the money. And, you know, it was just such an amazing journey.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the thing that really was one of the greatest inspirations, because we crowdfunded, I wasn't sure how I was going to fund it at all. I didn't have them. I mean, I've worked on it for nothing myself, selflessly, for a long time, but coming to printing it, I needed money, and we was persuaded to do a crowdfunding campaign for it. And some people gave very generously, but what really touched me was young people who just donated like £1 or $1, but they were really inspired by the project, and that for me gave me a lot of hope for the future. Because, you know, we've had a tough time with all this very negative portrayal of the community, and I think this just was really, you know, that the young people really want something different, and I think that's very inspiring.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you just mentioning that is kind of giving me goosebumps. I think that is what it is. We are doing all these works. You know, we say that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's in essence what it is. That all this work that, you know, yourself, that you've spent, obviously, you know, so passionately being able to bring to us. We want to be able to inspire the younger generation, and you know, like I said, kind of have that firm grip with you know, our tradition, our heritage, our faith, which is absolutely beautiful. And could you maybe talk a little bit about, because I absolutely love the image of the cover of the book. It's such a powerful image. I just, you know, I literally I look at it, I really get lost in it. It's just, I mean, how did that come about? Or did you go through all the photographs you'd taken and it's something just kind of fit? Or
it just, I mean, he's a very powerful presence, that man, and he was 125 when he died. I first met him when he was about 105.
Right.
And some of his people used to bring him to England every year. He lived in Medina his life for 60 years of his life. But they used to bring him to England every year and do this really intensive tour for him up and down England. I just didn't know how he did it. It wasn't that healthy. But anyway, I was fortunate enough to meet him, and so I did these photo session with him. So when I was, it really came from the title, which was Meetings of Mountains, and I just had this idea about, you know, making this image of one of these people being like a mountain, and his was the picture that came to mind, and then I was, you know, I had well, he's quite intense, you know, I don't want to put people off, although these people are quite awesome, you know. Yeah. And I tried many other pictures, but it just didn't work. That was the picture that had to be the cover. Yeah. And we played with it. We sort of lightened it up a little bit. So it was a bit of work to make it really translate to a wider audience. But I'm very happy with it. Really, it worked perfectly.
Yeah. No, it is a beautiful image, and so in terms of the book itself, so is this something available for people to actually purchase now? Is it something you're still funding?
It's online. If you go to my website, petersanders.com, there's a link. You'll see a banner under the pictures that come online immediately. There's a banner. You click on that, and it gives you all the information about the book, and you can buy it online. It is limited. We have, you know, it was a very, very expensive book to produce. It is subsidized because of the crowdfunding. Sure. We were only able to print a sort of limited edition, so it is there. I mean, hopefully it'll sell out, and then I'll have the problem of how am I going to print it again, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But it's really, you know, it's really exciting. We did a book launch in Bradford recently, and 1,000 people came to the the venue. We had Habib Ali who was there, who's, you know, has been involved in the book with me and is featured in the book, and it was really, really beautiful. And I was signing books about 3 hours. My hand went completely numb at the end of it. I had to dip it under I had to soak it under hot water to get it back to life again. And when the people wanted to clear the venue because they had another event happening, people were still selling books out of the window of the building, and passing card readers out and handing books out to people. So it was really an amazing event, really. There was a lot of excitement and buzz about it. So I'm kind of taken by it. This is all a bit of a, you know, we've turned into a kind of warehouse shipping company at the moment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's amazing. I'm getting orders from like places like Mauritius and Australia, and I don't know how they even heard of the book.
Right,
in all these places.
Brilliant.
So it's thank God, it's amazing. Really.
Yeah. No,
and it gives us hope, really. The fact that people, you know, love these people and see them as, you know, signposts to God is very important. We need to recognize their existence and you know, appreciate that. It's a great blessing, you know, and it gives a lot of hope after all this kind of negativity we've had. And I really believe it is a counter-narrative. I mean, you know, this is a conversation that hasn't been had, and I think maybe the time is right for it now.
Yeah, no, Masha, definitely. And will you be doing any more events to do with the book? Obviously, I know you were at Bedfordshire Literature Festival. Yes.
We're just finalising. I'm doing Glasgow this weekend.
At the Sufi Festival.
Yeah, the Sufi Festival. So I'm doing a presentation and book signing up there. Then after that, I think the next thing we're doing is Manchester. I think on the 3rd or 4th, I can't remember. It'll be on my website. We're going to finalise these dates. And then I'm doing Nottingham, I think Liverpool, I think I'm even doing High Wycombe.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Is that in the next few weeks or so?
Yeah, it's all going to be in the next few weeks. And then on 25th of September, I'm going to America. So I'm going to do a tour from East Coast to West Coast across America.
Oh, fantastic.
Promoting the book. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So that's,
we'll hope to put all those up. They'll be on social media, but hopefully they'll all be on my website in the next few days, so we'll finalise the dates.
Okay, inshallah. And then we'll just need to bring you back to Luton at some point as well.
Actually, there was discussion. Actually, I'm having a meeting about Luton, so...
fantastic, that's good to hear.
We'll do as many as I can.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And, I mean, I did have a message in from somebody who's actually had a copy of Meetings with Mountains, and she said that I read it in one sitting yesterday, totally immersed in it, beautiful, and she wanted me to thank you. Obviously there's someone...
I'm glad people are enjoying it. The writing was the most... I'm a photographer, I'm not really a writer, and I think the writing was the most difficult. I wanted to put it in a language that was accessible to everybody, and you're talking about things that actually are beyond words, so, you know, it was very difficult for me at the beginning to find a language to talk about these matters. Really, the book is the photographs and what happened when I met these people.
Sure.
And but I think eventually I got there. I had a lot of very good people mentoring me, and it was really.
So did you do the writing yourself, or was somebody else involved in that?
I wrote it all out, and I worked with an editor, and then she'd say to me, "Oh, you can't say that. It doesn't." Yeah. I tend to speak in telegrams, so I don't kind of explain myself a lot. And then she'd say, "You can't say that. You need to explain it a bit more." And I'm trying to find the balance between explaining it and not just making it about information. It needs to resonate in the heart somewhere. So that was a big challenge for me, but I'm pretty well happy with it, I think.
No, that's brilliant. But it's so wonderful to be able to actually have spoken to you about it. And like you said, it really does seem a journey and something that's finally coming to fruition. And I do hope obviously the tour goes really well, and that it's continues to be well received. But it has been an absolute pleasure, obviously, speaking to you about it. So thank you so much.
I think what I do like to add that it's not a who's who. You know, I do make this disclaimer. It's not a who's who of these people. I don't want to look like I'm the Vatican, sanctionizing all these people. It's my own personal journey, and anyone else would have their own journey. But it's really what happened when I met them and how it affected me.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
That's important to remember. Some people get very enthusiastic about their teachers, and then but they are all signposts to God, and they themselves will say that. It's not about personalities as such, although each person has their own personality. I'm not denying that, but these are people not trying to attract things to themselves. They're trying to say, look, we're just pointing to God, and that's very important to remember that.
Yeah. I mean, no, definitely. I think I agree, because everything, it's coming back to this idea of, signs, I guess, and the fact that, Allah's placed them here and there, and this idea of them, just being that kind of, I guess direction and just that reminder, I think is beautiful. And how many, I mean, would you be able to put a number, how many you've been able to actually document in the book in terms of the...
I can't remember. I should really count this up. I mean, the book is 380. It's a massive book.
Huge.
I mean, it's 380 pages. It weighs 3.1 kilos. It's a massive...
Amazing. Oh, wow.
I think there's 100. Somebody said there's 100 people. I thought there was more than that, but they're from all around the world. From every country that I was fortunate enough to meet these people, and many of them are very hidden. Some are known within certain communities. Some are very, very hidden, and that's the thing about these people. It's very easy to miss them if you're not careful. You need to keep your eyes open.
No, absolutely. We're just going to be
definitely there.
Yeah,
definitely there.
No, Jazakallah, so thank you so much. We're just heading over to a break now, but it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully we will be in touch again soon, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Okay then. All right, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Right.
Walaikum salam.
Right, so that was Peter Sanders talking about meetings with mountains. We are heading off to a break. See you in a few seconds. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Atif Nawaz, and you're listening to an Inspire FM podcast.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Book Club Show on Inspire 105.1 FM. The time is 10:30 on Tuesday the 23rd of July. I hope you had or grabbed yourself a tea or a coffee in that few moments that we had of a break. So we were talking a little while ago to Peter Sanders, who is an amazing photographer, preeminent photographer of the Muslim world, about his new book, Meetings with Mountains. It's a photographic book capturing the encounters that he himself has had personally with the saints and sages of the Islamic world. And it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to Peter Sanders kind of directly about his work, because I do find that, I'm always inspired speaking to him and just about his work and his passion, not just in terms of the art form that he works on in terms of photography, but the actual intentions that he, mashallah, has, for the work. This idea that he had, I guess, the blessing of being able to travel the Muslim world and meet these amazing, teachers and shuyukh, and amazing personalities, and be able to capture some beautiful images and to be able to share them, with us, especially, you'd heard him mention there were a few people that he'd photographed who then, very soon after just happened to actually, pass away. And the fact that, we are able to still have that link to them, I guess, through the amazing book, Meetings with Mountains. And he mentioned that you were able to purchase it via his website, which is petersanders.com. And again, it was just really, I thought, quite interesting, even the journey of, there's one thing where you're able to spend time and I guess put together a body of work, but then how do you get it to actual, to print, or how do you end up getting it to, some sort of exhibition when then people can actually access it? And I think that is always the struggle, especially when we talk about the arts sector, because, the arts, as we know, isn't something which is, it's always based on funding. If you can get the funding, absolutely brilliant. If you don't, then, I dread to think the amount of projects and people who've just had to give up because they haven't been able to secure, funds. And I think it's so important, especially for us as the Muslim communities, that are we investing enough when it comes to our culture and heritage, especially with the arts, because we know it's part and parcel of our faith. Even at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we know about there were poets and who. And poetry in itself was the epitome of excellence in terms of language and communication. And even, throughout, I think Peter Sanders mentioned Rumi, but the fact that, when you go and you talk to people who maybe aren't of the Muslim faith, maybe the only spiritual thing that they actually know about is Rumi, and that's actually it. And, that's, Maulana Rumi himself, in terms of his work, is amazing, but then to think that actually people don't have access, or they don't know about the wealth of treasure, in terms of the people we have as part of the Muslim faith is actually, I guess it's a little bit sad, but that's more importantly why this book, Meetings with Mountains, is so important, that we're able to, support these projects. And I think, especially for many of us living in Luton, it's a really, really good time in terms of there is a lot of investment coming in, but how many of us are actually taking the time out to, go to these events and attend these events and show our support. And, mashallah, we are very good when it comes to supporting, charity work, whether it's local or international. But the other thing I think we do need to start thinking about is in the current socio-political climate where, Islamophobia is on the rise. Very soon we're going to be having a newly appointed Prime Minister who, I think it would be... I have no qualms in saying that it's probably not the best pathway at the moment, I guess, for people of the Muslim faith, for people who have and follow Islam, and it's a part and parcel of their faith. Now, how do we go about setting up, a counter narrative? Because at the moment, the narrative out there, whether it's the media, whether it's TV, is definitely negative when it comes to speaking about Muslims. So that's why works such as these, whether it's books, whether it's exhibitions or projects, or I think if we hear that there's something going on, if we are able to financially support them, then absolutely I would definitely not just recommend that, I would strongly recommend that. But if we aren't able to contribute financially, I think even if we can just share things that are on social media, just letting people know that there's something happening and maybe actually attend, it does do a lot, I think, in terms of supporting one another. And then, so coming back to obviously the book that we spoke to Peter Sanders about, Meetings with Mountains, and that in itself, I think, as I said to Peter as well, the image itself, and I realised I didn't actually maybe describe it, but there is a picture of one of the shuyukh, and he's just in kind of a black kind of coloured chadar, like over his head, but then in the background there's actually a mountain, but it all kind of fuses together, if that's the right way of describing it. So it's almost as though the personality is the mountain itself, and then this idea that it's meetings with mountains. And we know even the Quran Allah mentions in the Quran and references the mountains many times, and this idea that they actually, mountains themselves, play an important role in almost like stabilizing the earth, and it's mentioned in the Quran where Allah says that, and He has set firm mountains in the earth so that it would not shake with you. And that, I think, is a beautiful, I guess, the book itself, then a personification of that these people who have dedicated their lives to Allah, to their faith, and actually it is because of them that we have, I think, this solid, firm foundation that those of us who are probably just barely, maybe being able to read our 5 daily prayers, that we know that actually there are those people out there that inspire us, that we are able to have maybe teachers that we learn from, and this idea of not even just, I guess, seeking knowledge, but more importantly, even being in their presence. So again, if there's events happening locally to you where that there's maybe a particular teacher who's travelled from a different place to deliver a lecture, we should try to make that effort to attend. And even if, perhaps, we've got a lot going on, even if we just pop in, or even if we're there and we only take one kind of gem, nugget of information and just keep it with us, I think that could be enough to just kind of keep us going. I remember recently there was an event with Usada Badriya, and I'd gone with my children, so some of it, there was a little bit of distraction there, but the one thing I remember taking away from that was this kind of advice where Masha, she just said, love people, right? And it was such a kind of a beautiful thing for me just to take from it. And you can kind of think, oh, well, that's a bit simple. It's really, what is the point of that? But sometimes I think we just need certain reminders, and something like that where you can leave a space and just say, I just need to love people, right? And it's those things that books and having access to books and that kind of knowledge is so important. And one of the links to, I guess, the work that Peter Sanders has done is a previous book that I mentioned earlier as well, Signs on the Horizons. And this is, I might actually talk about this book very soon as well, and we'll try to get Michael Sugic on the show, which would be wonderful. So he documented, similarly to, I guess, Peter Sanders, all the encounters that he'd had with these personalities around the world. And, you know, these, and it was more about how he felt, and it's his personal journey. But one of them I remember really, it really actually sums up a little bit of what Peter Sanders was actually trying to say in Meetings with Mountains. So Michael Sugic in this different book called Signs on the Horizons, he uses it's meant to be like a Sufi inspiration where they were talking about some of these people, as Peter Sanders said, they don't actually want all of this, I guess, exposure. They don't want necessarily people to know them, but and the analogy is to be like a black ant on a black stone at midnight. And I remember when I first came across this this statement, I found it so kind of profound, the fact that it's something or somebody who exists but they don't actually want to be seen. And I think in a world of social media and in a world of where we constantly just, it's all about our egos again, which is something that Peter mentioned, you know, it's all about selfie culture, and we just want ourselves to be always exposed and always kind of to be known about, and this idea of, you know, fame and wanting to be an influencer and oh gosh, all these things. These people, when we talk about the shayukh and you know, we talk about our teachers and we talk about, you know, awliya Allah, and to be honest, it's not even one of those things where you know, there's might be it's a slight difference of opinion where you just think, well, you know, the Quran and Sunnah is what you need to hold to. But I think there are times when you need those sources of inspiration. But the fact that these people who Peter Sanders has captured in his book Meetings with Mountains, that they are exactly like that, to be like a black ant on a black stone at midnight, to be completely hidden. And I think, you know, there's a lot that we can actually ourselves take from that. And the coming to maybe a previous work of Peter Sanders, so he has another photographic book, which was one of the first that I actually ever bought, which was called In the Shade of the Tree. And again, I guess the intention was a little bit similar. So it was idea to capture just images, so not just people, but actually any kind of images of the Islamic world, and just present it really beautifully. But in that particular book, there are also some pictures of some of our teachers. So there's one here, which is it's a beautiful picture, and it just shows Sheikh Ahmed Fal. He just is holding a book, and you can see a stack of books behind him. He's got a beautiful smile as well, and the little caption basically says, and this is by Peter Sanders: after driving for many hours through the Mauritanian desert, we arrived at the tent of this great scholar, Sheikh Ahmed Fal, a completely unpretentious gentleman who sat surrounded by his books. He was a gracious host. As our visit concluded, we asked if there was anything he needed. After a moment, his reply was, just a small mud building to protect my books. Every time there is a sandstorm, my books are ruined. So I think that's a beautiful example, actually, I guess, of what we can expect from Peter Sanders in terms of his work, to be able to just that small, bit of information. It says so much about who this person is, the fact that he obviously has a love of books, and just being worried that actually that this is going to be ruined, in a sandstorm, because living in the desert in a tent, and just saying, actually, I just want a small mud building. And for those of us who are constantly wanting to have the biggest best house on the best road, and all these intentions that we have for ourselves, that actually maybe we should just maybe just be a bit more humble and think about the things that are really important. And there is also another example of one of the shuyukh that Peter Sanders has photographed. So this is a book, I'm looking particularly right now in the Shade of the Tree, just to give you an example, but obviously the book that Peter Sanders was talking about is called Meetings with Mountains. So this one is an image, and it says, A memorizer of the entire Quran, Sheikh Muhammad Ali is known also as a master of the times. This title is given to special people who are able to tell when the time of any of the 5 daily prayers has arrived without the aid of any device other than a stick and the length of its shadow. He can also tell which day it is by the movement of the stars. He has a very lovable personality and one feels strongly drawn to his company. Again, it's such a, the image itself is beautiful, and just that kind of accompanying piece of writing with it. The fact that we had these people who were able to do these really amazing things where they were so in tune with nature that they were able to use literally suns, shadows and stars and be able to tell that I am terrible. I literally, once the clocks change, I spend weeks trying to work out, when's the Dhuhr, when's Asr, and but the fact that they are our teachers who they just know, and because they've had that blessing, they've had that dedication and their love, I guess, for Allah and Islam, that they were able to do these things even now. And I think these things are so important when we talk about this type of work, especially. Now, the other obviously body of work that I mentioned earlier by Peter Saunders was called The Art of Integration. So 2017, we brought the Art of Integration exhibition to Luton, and I actually had the pleasure of obviously working with Peter Saunders and actually commissioning him to create a new body of work, in Luton. And I think at that time the intention really was to again come back to this idea of presenting a counter narrative, where Luton as a town, we it's always misrepresented, it's always presented in a negative light, and sometimes that is because people just assume as Muslims, and just kind of really make sensationalist headlines, I think. And, it was for me to say, well, if I could work with Peter to create a body of work that actually shows that Muslims in Luton, we are also doing amazing things. And even that term actually, so it was called Beyond Borders. But the strapline was The Art of Integration, and that term itself, integration, how it's become such a loaded term. And again, even as I mentioned, this current social political climate where we are having to almost, I guess, as Muslims, humanize ourselves. And it's not something actually we should have to do, and we shouldn't do it. But I think at that time, a couple of years ago, there was kind of something that I felt I needed to do something which was a positive, and that I could have that sense of not even pride, but actually I have the intention to really build something for the younger people. And obviously as a mother at that time, I was like, I don't want my daughters to grow up in a world where they're not it's not even about tolerance. I want them and all of us really to be fully accepted into the society that we live, and we shouldn't have to actually even have to fight for that. But obviously reality is sometimes very, very different. But again, so The Art of Integration is a different body of work which is looking at the positive representation of British Muslims in the UK. So both these books, Art of Integration and In the Shade of the Tree, are both kind of photographic essays, so to speak. And Meetings of Mountains, which is the book we were talking to Peter Saunders about earlier. So looking more specifically at the encounters with saints and sages of the Islamic world. But if you have any comments or views that you'd want to share, you can call in on 01582 481 822, or you can WhatsApp in on 07779 481 822. So I think it's one of those things that Peter mentioned that he's going to be obviously going on a tour to talk about the book Meetings with Mountains, and again how it's really important that actually we are able to, even in Luton, be part of these events. And I was glad to hear that actually he is in discussion to be able to hopefully do some sort of an event in Luton that we can also attend, or even if there's one maybe closer by. So I think all in all, it's been one of those things where when we talk about our Shayukh teachers, that when it comes to the importance of knowledge and what is it that we gain, and it's I think always comes back to intention. So even the intention for the book club show always has been how can we increase our love for reading, and how do we find the time to be able to do that. And I think the aim really of book club is that even if you haven't read a particular book that we are talking about, on the show, that even by listening in, maybe you're able to, take something from it. Or I always love to hear actually people, giving me any recommendations of books that we can discuss. So it's actually quite funny. Every time I mention somebody about the book club show or the book club, the actual book club, the Rama book club, immediately I'm like, I've got this book that I'd really like to recommend. And it's always great to actually have those recommendations. So you can always contact the studio and just maybe let me know of any book recommendation that you have, then I can include on our reading list and try to get through them. Also, if you are interested in being a guest on the book club show, that would be also great. I'd love to hear from you. And obviously having guests, I think, just brings that dynamic in terms of a discussion. So next week it's going to be obviously the holidays, right? Because my daughter's actually break up from school today, which is actually rather late. But so I'm going to try to have a couple of the shows to do something which also young people can be interested in. So next week I'll be joined by some amazing young people. We will be discussing the book Out of This World by Ali Sparks. So that is going to be quite a different one, because I think it's kind of I still need to read it, by the way, but I think it's kind of like a sci-fi type novel, which I haven't actually done many of. So I'm actually really looking forward to doing that show and actually doing it with the young people who I'm sure are going to have some really interesting things to say. So that is going to be next week on 30th of July, obviously from 10 to 11. And then I will probably be asked back into the studio the week or so after that with a different book. But as I said, if you have any suggestions, it would be lovely to hear from you. So I think what might be quite nice is in terms of some of the books that I have. So I was also looking, as I mentioned, at The Signs on the Horizons by Michael Sugich. And Michael Sugich, Peter Sanders, they've worked very, very closely together. Even in this book, actually, Michael Sugich, makes a wonderful kind of reference to Peter Sanders and his work, which I am going to quickly find and read it to you. So he says, I first conceived of the idea of writing about men of God that I have met over a quarter of a century ago, when the photographer Peter Sanders and I discussed the idea of recording biographies of these men and others in the tradition of the anecdotal hagiographics of saints that has existed in Islam since the beginning. We wanted to show in the most vivid way possible that men of profound spirituality are still with us. The project, as originally conceived, was more ambitious and would have required years of time and extensive travel to track down and interview hundreds of people who had known the great 20th century Sufis. However, we both had growing families and responsibilities that made the project highly impractical. For year after year, we put this enterprise off, yet it was always at the back of both of our minds. Both of us are passionate about the transcendent gifts these men have brought to our lives personally and to the world. While the grand historical project we originally conceived has receded, we have each separately revived the idea in more personal forms. We are producing in parallel two complementary volumes, both highly personal, from two different approaches. In a very real sense, this book would not have been written without the inspiration of Peter Sanders' four-decade quest to capture the saints of Islam on film. And I think, that kind of extract from this book, Signs on the Horizons, is really beautiful, because it even shows back then when this book itself was published, that they were kind of had this working together on meetings with mountains. And I think it's beautiful that they've been able to actually now bring it to fruition, and you are able to purchase Meetings with Mountains via Peter Sanders' website, which is petersanders.com. Obviously, Peter Sanders mentioned that there's others. There's maybe about 100. He said he hadn't counted yet of people that he has been able to capture in the book. And even there's reference to Dr. Martin Lings, who obviously we know wrote one of the series of the Prophet Sallallahu, and there'll be many others that he mentioned also Habib Ali, which I know there's many of us in Luton, because he's Habib Ali has come to Luton many times before, and just being able to, I guess, have that all in one book that we can access whenever we want, I think is brilliant. And the message that I had earlier from somebody who'd said that they'd obviously read the book and the profound effect it had on them, I think is so important that sometimes we're able to take that time out and pause, and especially for those of us, I guess, who maybe feel like, okay, I don't really have time to read a whole book or a novel. The fact that this book, Meetings with Mountains, it's a photographic book. It is literally being able to look at some beautiful visuals and then have accompanying kind of text with it, and just to sit and take time and to really ponder about what all these things mean. And again, coming back to the fact that it's called Meetings with Mountains, and what about our meetings that we have with people, in our daily lives, whether it's, friends or teachers or colleagues. What intentions do we make first thing in the morning before we're going to work, or before we're going, to do something? And I think, again, it's a beautiful reminder actually of the intentions that we should have. So when we're hoping to meet somebody, what do we want to take from that? And as soon as we make the intention that actually this is for the pleasure of Allah, or we have that right intention, there will always be some benefit in it. And I think even whether it's wanting to spend time with children or our parents, it's again about creating that kind of sense of unity and that sense of love, and always having the intention that actually we are in the dunya as as custodians, and that responsibility on us as human beings is so important. And it's a good reminder, I think, to have, and it's hopefully being able to have a book like Meetings with Mountains, or any sort of kind of literature or piece of art that I think when you look at and it reminds you of Allah, then there's obviously goodness and there's benefit in it. And hopefully, inshallah, it's something that we can always share with others, or even for our own spirituality, in this sense of what it means to be spiritual. And we have a lot, obviously, a talk about that, but what it means to basically be pause and take time, and just be able to always come back to Allah, which I think is so important. So like I said, next week we are going to be joined by some lovely young people talking about Out of This World by Ali Sparks. I will see you then. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.